You're listening to Women Are the Journey with your hostess with the mostest. That's right, me, Audrey Rochelle. We've got all your journeying here. We've got the story of the shift, where women entrepreneurs talk about their own unique journey on the road of owning a business as a woman. We have the journey of Chew on This, where I talk about the masculine structures of our society, how they hinder women in particular, but all of us in general. We'll open up the potentials of what a balance of feminine and masculine can give to us and to our planet. Join me as we explore the infinite possibilities of a journey of balance and transformation. Howdy, everybody. Today I have Rochelle Schieck. She's the founder of Qoya. Qoya combines movement, ritual, community, and pilgrimage for women. Since its inception in 2009, she has trained hundreds of Qoya teachers, taught thousands of Qoya movement classes, and led dozens of retreats in the most sacred places on earth with one intention in mind: to remember and to help others to do the same. Her work has been featured in outlets like New York Magazine, Oprah.com, The Telegraph, and Psychology Today. To learn more, you can visit Qoya.love and read her book titled Qoya, A Compass for Navigating an Embodied Life that is Wise, Wild, and Free. Let me tell you, you are really going to love what Rochelle has to say today. She talks about being in the practice of being willing to explore and listen and honor the messages that we receive. She also talks about having room for our truth and the time to deeply listen to yourself. There's so many more tidbits and there's so much more fun and information with this interview with Rochelle Schieck. I'm going to stop talking and let you guys listen to Rochelle. Hey everybody, it's Audrey Rochelle here, and we are in for a story of the shift with the wonderful Rochelle Schieck today. And I want to start by welcoming Rochelle in. Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, thank you, Audrey. Thanks for having me here, and thank you to everyone that's listening. I know what a blessing it is when we have enough free time to dive into these, so really grateful for all of us being together.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a wonderful way to start.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to just dive right in and ask you, first off, where you are right now. What's happening in your journey with your business?
So where I am right now is a place of celebration and also reimagining. So once upon a time, my absolute daydream was to be able to teach, to be able to travel, to be able to write. And over the last 9 years of really pouring every ounce of my body, mind, heart, and soul into Qoya, that's the reality. So I'm able to do that in a way that sustains me, inspires me, and now a big part of my business was built around me teaching and traveling retreats and teacher trainings, which is incredibly rewarding and fulfilling, and simultaneously takes me away from home a lot. And so now I'm in a place of reimagining of what are the ways in which I can continue to do the things that I love, but maybe not have my schedule traveling 50 to 60% of the time. So I'm reemerging and listening to a new dream. And, my life is a little bit different than it was 10 years ago. I've recently gotten married. And while I've spent so much of my life being nomadic, found a home in upstate New York in the woods. So it's definitely reimagining. Yeah, that's where I am right now.
I love that word though. That's a fabulous word of shifting, of in the process of shifting.
Yeah.
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 And that's quite a different lifestyle to purchasing a house from being a nomad. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't purchase it yet. I didn't make that big of a commitment. But yeah, it is. It's a different pace, and I'm really savoring it. I really I'm really enjoying. It's like we all go through phases in our lives.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
it's just a new phase.
That's awesome, though. Now, I have a question for women out there who are not familiar with Qoya. What exactly is Qoya? If you can give us a brief description, and then we'll dive into your stories.
So Qoya is a movement system that is based on the idea that through movement we remember. And through movement we remember our essence is inherently wise, wild, and free. And that draws reference to the movement forms that we'll do in the class. So wise calls on the wisdom of yoga practice, intention setting, breathing, reflection. Wild calls on the creative, authentic expression in dance. And free is about expanding our capacity to enjoy being in our body with the idea that what you look for is often what you see. So although it's very normal to go on healing journeys in the body and have talkative, this and that, that we really look for the place where it feels good to move and move in a way where we feel the most like ourselves. We often say in Qoya, there's no way to do it wrong, and the way that you know that you're doing it right is that it feels right to you. So it's meant to explore movement as metaphor and as medicine. So you practice this wisdom, this authenticity, this creativity in your life so that when you go into after the class and you're making a decision about work or family or anything, that you can really trust the truth that's in your physical body that you cultivated in a Qoya class.
I love that so much. I just want to say, wow, that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And because so many of us are so out of touch with our own bodies. And I just love that. And I can't wait to get into it more. I have not been successful at it yet, as far as tapping into really getting in touch with feeling during the dance, but I'm sticking with it because I absolutely adore the concept. All right, so let's move into your stories. If you can, give us your first crisis moment that got you moving on this road.
Well, it's really actually as painful as it was to live through. I'm so grateful to share the story in the way that it was a really profound catalyst for me with Qoya. So I had started teaching these classes where a woman had rose her hand in a women's circle and said, everyone says I need to get out of my head and into my body, and I don't know how to do that. And so she was saying that for her, like the gym was torture and yoga was boring and she could never get in the right level dance class, and she hurt her back in pole dancing. And so I had this idea of like, maybe we could combine the things. And that's kind of what I was doing in my living room. And so I said, we'll do this class. It'll be yoga, dance, sensual movement. She came. All these other women came. It was sold out. I added a few more classes and it was great.
Wow.
So and we started it, this was about 9 years ago, in the exploration of the question of how does a woman's body really want to move, and how does she move in a way where she really feels the most like her true self?
Good questions.
Yeah, we were in that question. I wasn't like, oh, I know the answer. And now I have some good theories, but I'm not attached to knowing the answer either. So basically, but there were these big themes that were emerging, which were trust yourself, trust your body's wisdom, listen to yourself, listen to your body's wisdom. And so simultaneously, I was in a relationship where my body's wisdom, like when my boyfriend at that time would like go to the bathroom, like my body would start shaking and I would hear this voice that would be like, check his phone, check his phone. But I was like, no, I kept being like, there's something wrong with me. I have issues because I never met my dad growing up. And so I don't know how to receive love. Like he loves me. Everything is fine. And I just kept making all those things like my fault.
Right.
And that was sort of like my spiritual practice, was to take responsibility for myself and how I felt.
Right.
So then I ended up going to a therapist, and I told the therapist like what was going on. And so she just said back to me, it was really powerful. So she's like, you're getting an intuitive message that you need to, that maybe his integrity is in question.
Yeah.
But you don't want to break the trust between you two. And so you're not going to explore it. And I was like, yes. And I was like, this is my ability. I was like, I think this is my inability to receive love. And so she just looked me in the eye and she's like, it seems like you're really concerned about not breaking the trust between you and him, but you feel like comfortable breaking the trust between you and yourself.
Ooh, that's heavy.
I know. I was like, oh man. And then she kind of just looked at me and she's like, if your body says check his phone, check his phone.
Wow.
And so I know, which I don't think is like normal advice, but
I've never had a therapist say that.
yeah. But is what ended up happening was I did, and I sort of realized I had this alter ego that was a spy, and it was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it once, and I'm going to do it well.
Right.
Like I'm not. And what was revealed is this man had like a total double life, like the extent of the deceit and the cheating. I mean, it was like unfathomable. I mean, it was like, like dozens of things of evidence. I mean, it was just, it was, so it was really, really intense. And we had lived together and I had, dreams and fantasies of family. And,
right.
And so is what ended up happening in the healing process is that, I ended up going to Peru and going on this big pilgrimage to heal myself, but also, to find the correlating thread between what had happened and also like what was going on in my life. And so basically it came to this moment of like, from my soul perspective, what is the gift? And if I get the gift from the situation, I don't have to be in misery about it. And the gift was that when I went back and reflected, like every single one of those evidences that I found, I had an intuitive knowing. I just wasn't trusting myself because I didn't want it to be true. Yeah. And so it was that I was going to offer myself to this practice of Qoya, to supporting other women, to trust themselves. And of course, like it's not like, oh, my body said this, it's 100% accurate, but it's that we are in the practice of being willing to explore and listen and honor the messages we receive, to explore if they're true instead of just diminishing our inner knowing that we're crazy or emotional or, So for me, it really, like that particular experience allowed me to become incredibly passionate in supporting other women and their intuitive knowing that can sometimes be nonlinear. And also just allowing us to create a little bit more spaciousness in our perspective of the world, that there's room for our truth here. Yeah. And ultimately the promise that came forward was, for me, it was like, it doesn't matter if I'm with a partner who's cheating or not, if I feel unsafe, that I need to listen to that. Yeah. Whether that's like removing myself from the relationship or doing more inner work or healing. But the answer to that question is not like, oh, there's something wrong with me and I need to endure this pain and suffering.
Right. Well, but so often women do that anyways. We have we flagellate ourselves thinking that, there's something horribly wrong with us and therefore we deserve to be in this pain. And I love that the lesson is the trusting in the self. And then the second lesson of honoring yourself and putting yourself before that thought of complete, judging yourself and willingness to put yourself through the pain because you think you deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that that's huge. And I think that too many women do not understand that message of honoring ourselves. I think it makes us very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I feel like if we really drop into like those moments where we're so tender, it's like a baby's born, someone passes, like incredible betrayal, incredible generosity from a friend, those moments that just sort of wake you up and you feel something with your whole heart. It's like, we want to allow more of those moments with ourselves, like, it's like just that kindness, that compassion, that deep listening. And it is scary and it is hard because there's a lot of pain, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain.
Definitely.
But there's less pain if you can feel it, honor it, bring it into ritual ceremony. And a lot of the training that I did with shamanic energy healing was about this alchemical practice that's in many spiritual, mystical, personal growth traditions, is turning your wounds into power and doing that through service. So it's like when you heal through something, you carry a particular gift of being able to support others. And even, it doesn't mean that you have to have a business about it. It doesn't mean you might,
Right. Right.
it could just be the next time, like like when I talk to someone and they're going through like a horrible breakup, like I can look them in the eye and just say, like, I have full faith that you can move through this. You're just going to get stronger because that's what we do. And really believe in that because that's what I did, so I offer that forward, and I'm grateful to be able to do that. Like, I'm grateful for the pain points in my life that I was able to learn and grow, so I don't have to fear pain points, but I develop confidence to know that if something happens, I have resilience, I have faith, I have I have a community of practice to bring me back to the bigger picture.
That's beautiful. I love that. So let's move into a next crisis moment. Where were you and what was happening when something else hit the fan, so to speak?
Well, I'd say that there's another, like, this is a lot of what my book is about, is these moments where I really, really lost myself. And oftentimes I felt so connected to myself in my work. I felt so connected to myself in my spiritual practice, but the place where I would lose myself was romantic relationships. So just another moment where I was in the healing process of the story I mentioned before, and then met someone, and then just went into full on projection mode. And I mean, in a place where I felt really tormented in some ways, and a hard time getting up off the couch, and just really felt like the love that I so wanted to experience was so externalized, and was not able to give it to myself, and I didn't really have the tools to realize until another great therapist came into my life and basically had me go on like a dating fast for like a year. and the thing that emerged was just like that part of you, like, are you really interested in being with someone who doesn't want to be with you?
Ooh, that's a big question.
I know. And it was just like, I mean, if you're in your right mind and in your right heart and in a place of self-respect and love, it's not a hard question.
Right. But
But
that takes a while to get to that spot.
yeah, but if you're in a place where you are in such yearning and such a, I mean, for me, the word was really desperation. So it was really touching the root of my desperation, which for me was not hard to track. Just I had never met my father growing up. So,
right.
This was just one of those ways in which the masculine was elusive and hard to connect with.
Right.
And but the crisis moment was really just really losing myself into, this projection of just, it's like a spoof or a parody. It's like, like the phone rings and it's like, I'm ecstatically happy. And then the phone doesn't ring. And it's like, I can't get up off the floor. I mean, it's just.
And how many times did you do that to yourself?
I feel like, I mean, this particular experience was one for the books, literally, but it, probably like a handful of times at least, to different extremes. But
And did you start to see them coming?
yeah, so I had this great experience where I was on a date, and it was so magical. And this was the thing, this was really challenging for me because a lot of times there would be a lot of synchronicity around these events.
Mm-hmm.
And I always interpreted it that it was because I was with that other person.
Right.
Realizing that the common denominator through reflection was me.
You were the one person there all the time.
Exactly. Like, maybe I'm bringing the magic here. And but basically I was on a first date, and the infatuation and projection was beginning. And we ended up walking towards a lake. We were in Chicago, and there was this coyote that emerged, but I didn't know if it was a coyote or a wolf. But we're like downtown Chicago, like there's skyscrapers, to the left, and then there's a lake, and then there's this really powerful animal to the right.
Wow.
And so I don't think you're supposed to make eye contact with coyotes or wolves, but I did. And it circled around us 3 times, and then it went to lay down and just look out at the water. And so in the reflection after that, there was this moment where it's like I really wanted that animal to be a wolf. Like I really wanted it to be a symbol of being loyal, of being part of a tribe,
right.
a pack.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did this research to find out which animal it was, by the tracks, and found out it was a coyote, which carries, into spirit medicine, this trickery and this. And I just right from that moment, I was like, yeah, I think this situation is more of a trick. It's a little bit like a test. I don't think this person is not showing up in a way that I'm getting a loyal relationship, honest, depth vibe. Mm-hmm. And so that was a time where I was able to move through it much more quickly. And also just I was able to observe and see from the beginning, okay, I see all those things starting, and I've done all this work. So I don't want to go through this very familiar path. I've seen these signposts before.
That's awesome though. It's you finally recognize the pattern, and obviously with a little help from someone else.
Yeah.
So that's great. Now I want to know what this did for you during your Qoya path. So you're out dancing and learning all of these things. What did all of this do for this path?
Well, I think the ways in which it really, really supported me were a place of keeping me incredibly humble and deeply connected to the understanding that, women on our journey, we're all going to have a unique set of blessings and a unique set of challenges.
Love that.
And instead of having a false image that everything is going to be sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns and rose petals all day, every day, that we all get these opportunities to explore the ways in which we can transform and heal and grow and be of service. And so the pain point of those relationships was a way in which that kept me incredibly tuned in to the sincere point of other people showing up in Qoya in hopes of healing. And also the opportunity that emerges in sisterhood when we can, honor and grieve, but also we can be playful. So there were some very funny things of dramatizing the drama that came forward of just as I share this story, obviously I'm not alone. It's not I'm the only woman that ever walked the earth that had some projection issues in their romantic relationships. So it also becomes this way in which we can connect and embrace our wholeness. Some people are just there they're great at relationships. They're not great at money. Some people are, great at money and not good with their food. And some people
Right.
are great at food and they're not good with, their work, whatever.
Right.
It's just, we all, but like we come together to support each other, to learn and grow from each other. So I think the main thing that I got was, I felt so much confidence and so much, courage in so many areas of my life, but this was the place where it kept me in like a beginner's mind of like, here I am, step one again,
Beginner's mind. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And bring yourself back. Because I think that's so important to create that awareness of self. And it really is amazing how for women specifically, the personal always affects the professional.
Mm-hmm.
And we always take it with us. Everything, because everything is interconnected with all of us anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And we take it with us and we apply it, even if we haven't got the lesson yet, even if we don't get it, even if we're not living the lesson, we're still applying it to other people or in different aspects of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in listening to you, I realized that, one of the things in all these relationship quandaries was, what I was really searching for was my connection to myself, my connection to the divine,
Yep.
and eventually a connection to a partner that was in integrity and wanted to be in the relationship as much as I did.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of important.
and thankfully I'm really happy that is a place where I'm able to be right now and today, and very happily married, and so, but there was this opportunity in noticing more of my personal journey, that I was really able to speak to the deeper inquiry of women and the way that they were showing up for Qoya, of just, I want the job, I want the car, I want the man, I want the this, I want the that,
Yeah.
of just holding space for, the deeper desire that I feel like we can trust, like is innately in all of us, which is to remember our essence, to remember the divine love that supports us, and to have a world that more reflects that externally, but to really tap back into the purity that is internal.
Right. Well, and the only way to have that external is to be in the internal. And it starts with you always, and then moves out to your home and the people that you interact with, and then hopefully eventually outside of that.
Yes.
Because you never know who you touch with all of the stuff that you do and you say.
Exactly.
And you have 500 teachers out there touching way more people than you could just by yourself.
Yeah, and that was definitely always the vision. It was like, I'm very aware of my singularity as one person, and very just so grateful for the people that feel the call, that have had a personal experience with Qoya in a way that they felt inspired to share it, and it makes my heart so happy to imagine people supporting one another, getting into their bodies, getting into their truth, and creating these safe havens for our expression. Because we of course we want to imagine a world where there's more of them, but there's a lot of people who don't have tons of places where they can say how they feel,
Yeah.
and where they can even feel how they feel.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think that is one of our biggest problems as women, to be honest, is that we don't allow ourselves to feel for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I love about what you do, about what your dance provides, is that way to tap into really connecting to who you are and what you feel. It's so important. And I just am so excited to share all of this information with everybody else, because I would love to spread what you do far and wide. I think it's just brilliant.
Thank you. I so appreciate your support.
Absolutely. Now, let's move into what would be your top tips for everybody? What would you say is the most important thing for moving into, stepping into, and moving through those crisis moments?
Well, so one of the things I do is I lead retreats for people, but of course it's not totally like a great tip for everyone to be like, "Hey, take a week off work." And come with me to Guatemala. Like that's not totally helpful. Um, but one of the things that I'll share is that on retreat, people will often have like immense visions of clarity. So what are the components there?
Yeah.
Well, one is they're getting more sleep daily, to exercise. For the most part, all the retreat centers we go to have healthy food, like a positive social interaction, like with community, and then some opportunities for introspection. So, I mean, the thing, like, I feel like most people don't like this advice, but because it's like you need time. You need to actually like make time for yourself to deeply listen to yourself. And so that can look a million different ways. It can be a bath, like a daily ritual, like, life is wild and there's so many things going on and there's family and there's work and there's this and there's that. But like I claim 30 minutes of alone time in the bath before I go to bed, or, waking up in the morning. And I feel like the things that I could give you like a bunch of suggestions and I'm happy to do that. But the thing to realize is the most important practice is the one that you do. And the most important practice is the one that works for you. And then I think as women, there's amazing value in discipline, but also I feel like in women, there's amazing value in really understanding how our biochemistry, how our hormones, like how they change all the time. So like,
to that.
yeah, I'm not the person that's like, I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. No,
No.
if I'm on a menstrual cycle, my practice is doing nothing and not answering my phone. And, because
Awesome.
and it's like, and if it's the week after my menstrual cycle, then like that's the week where I really want to take time I'm going to have more energy and I'm aware of that. So I want to be more creative, and then the week before my menstrual cycle, I want to really just allow that my energy is starting to go in. So I want to cut things out of my calendar and have, like if it's my movement practice, I want to do something that's softer, gentler, maybe a walk,
Right.
Versus another time it might be something more like I'm going to go to a hot yoga class. So those are just like exercise examples, but to bring them into to bring them into the place where we have to cultivate the ability to know what is going to be the most nourishing for us. So in the beginning, that might be a bath every day for 30 days or meditating for 30 days or maybe that's not it. Maybe it's 1 week, one thing. I'm trying to give a lot of options here to explore the idea that like you can't do it wrong. But the tip is that there has to be an understanding of self to know how to connect with self, and then a commitment to do that.
That's brilliant. I love it. I love the fact that you said you can't do it wrong. I think so many of us beat ourselves up for what we perceive, which is always perception is key, but we perceive that we are wrong because we're not, moving right, or we're not doing, I didn't meditate today, or whatever the case may be. It's I don't know, I guess I may as well give it up. But I love that you can't do it wrong. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your book.
Well, I really love my book because I thought of these moments where someone comes and they're like, how did you do it? Whether it's like your personal growth or creating a business or traveling the world or any of these things. And I really went into my heart and soul and imagined like, if my daughter were to read this book, if I were to read this book at age 18,
right.
if my very, very, very most beloved best friend's sister was going through a hard time. Like, how could I help her?
Right.
And so the way in which that I've always been inspired to help people is to encourage them to trust themselves. Again, there's a theme here.
Yeah.
And
Shockingly enough.
there's a consistency of message. So the book goes through very humble, vulnerable stories in which I remembered how to trust myself. But then the thing that I'm most proud about is there is, after every chapter, there are 4 exercises to invite someone to find their own relationship to it through a movement, to explore the movement through a ritual, to come into that place of reverence, through community connection of how can you take this idea and engage it with other people, and then into pilgrimage of how can you take this out like into the world, because so much of our explorations can sometimes be in our head.
Yeah.
So like so an example would be in the first chapter is invitation for people to go on a pilgrimage and to go have their feet touch the ground where they were born.
Oh, wow.
And to go and to really be into that contemplation around our relationship to our body, and just to set an intention of whatever's going on in your life right now. What would you like to learn from this pilgrimage? And just the most amazing stories that have come back. And I share the story that I had in mine, and then also try to encourage people not to be too attached to something super magical and life-changing happening, but also to just be in that place of being willing to be open,
Gotcha.
like sometimes, like anything, like it's like, okay, you take the dog for a walk around the block every day. And one day you go out and the sun is shining and you're happy. And the next day it's like rainy and you forget the bag for the dog poop and it's a mess. And then the next day you like run into someone and you get to have a great conversation with a neighbor. And then the next day there's just something about the light and the way that it comes in through the trees. And then it hits the reflection on the water of the lake. And it's like you see God.
Yeah.
And all you did was walk the dog around the block and you had all these different experiences. But just this willingness to be an intention of like, I'm aware that something else is there, and I'm aware to put myself in a position where my intention is to notice and receive any of the deeper messages that might be available to me right now.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I absolutely recommend everybody go and buy this. It's available on Amazon. Is it also available on your website?
It is. It
Okay,
is. And
cool.
the book is just called Qoya, Qoya, a compass for navigating an embodied life that is wise, wild, and free.
And just one last question about how did you come up with the name?
So the name, I was on this pilgrimage in Peru, and I was in the question of, is this what I'm going to dedicate my life to? And the name I was using then was Inspired Movement. And I knew that wasn't the name, but I needed to call it something.
Right.
And so I heard a tour guide say, and this is where the Qoya would bathe. And I was like, the who? And he was like, the Qoya. And I was like, who were the Qoya? And it's like, oh, like the Incas were the kings, the Qoya were the queens.
Oh,
And then I did a bunch of research and found that it translated not as this like bejeweled, emotionally distant position of inherited power, but as these wisdom keepers.
oh,
And the language that Qoya is in is Quechuan, which is a vibrational language like Sanskrit. So if you were in a yoga class, the yoga teacher said, now we're going to stand in Tadasana. Tadasana means mountain, but when you say Tadasana, the vibration of that word describes a mountain. So Tadasana like feels like a steady base, like a mountain. So Qoya,
right.
the vibration of that is also what it is. And so since Qoya, the practice is so much about how it feels, for me, it felt really, really resonant. And there's lots of other stories of synchronicity with that are in the book, but that's the short one.
I love it. I just think that's brilliant. And I love the fact that the queen is not the inherited queen, but the wisdom, the the
Yeah,
the mother of us, so to speak,
exactly.
that's in each of us.
Exactly. I always see it like as a circle of queens, like not queen as in hierarchy, but
Right.
it's like where we're all remembering our ability to be sovereign
Mm-hmm.
and to sit on the throne of our own life, um, by being respectful of ourselves and others.
I love that. All right. Now, tell us a little bit about what women you would like to, or who you can help. Who are the women that need to talk to you, who would love to read your book, do your dancing, engage with you?
I feel like when I do this deep inquiry around, like when I'm writing a blog post and I'm imagining who it's for, or I'm making a retreat and I'm imagining who it's for, I feel like the thing that comes to me often is someone on the verge of making a soul-based decision.
Mm.
And at the same time, there's definitely a lot of people who come and want to, the phrase that we often say is like, get out of our head and get into our body, or get out of my head and get into my heart. People who are looking for more community, and people who basically, I would just say, like, when you look in the mirror and you make eye contact with yourself and you just deep down know that there is another potentiality of perspective that honors the interconnectedness of all things within your body, within the world, and knows that there's a way that we can show up and love more and grieve more and celebrate more, and that sometimes we have so much fear that we can't hold it, that we can't hold the challenges of our lives or the challenges of the world. But in truth, when you look at yourself in the mirror, we can do hard things and we can do them with great love.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would hope that everyone listening would completely take you up on this, because it's one of the things I'm looking forward to really diving deep into the book. And I am really going to be making an effort to find myself a class out here where I live. I have been unable to find one so far, but I will, because I want that community feeling. I want to go out there and be with other women and do this, because I think that is one of the biggest things that we're missing as women, is that sense of community, and not just the community, but the shared experience and feelings. And I think that that's so important. And I love that you have embodied it in such a feminine and multifaceted way. Love it.
Thank you.
Well, Rochelle, it has been really quick.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it, but it really is, huh? We have reached the end, and I want to thank you so much for all of your information, for all of your tidbits, for your vulnerability, for your honesty, all of it. Thank you for being here. And I hope that everybody really takes some really big steps with this, because I think that you offer some really good tips. And I really am taking away, the big thing for me was, you can't do it wrong. And I love that. Love it. That's my big takeaway. So Rochelle, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you, Audrey. Thank you for the space that you hold for many women and for me today, and to offer an opportunity for us to gather in the space of having conversations that really matter. And may all the seeds that got planted, may they grow to nourish us and then spread out as more seeds.
You are just full of little tidbits. I love it. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Story of the Shift with Rochelle Schieck, and I will be talking at you on the other side. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, or even if you didn't, hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends. You can follow me on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher at Women Are the Journey. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.